So this is my video response to Mike Duncan's revolutions up to the point of the conclusion of the Second Paris Commune. Um, wow, it's an amazing story that's being presented of people, of the social classes, the relationships, and understanding of what is the hierarchy, what is, how are people living, how do people get by in the society that they are born into, and what are the traditions. So people living in the countryside, people in the farms versus people in the cities, and that transition, which is I think it's an interesting relationship of money. A couple times banks are mentioned, and and surprisingly later on in the revolutions less about money. So that's the interesting thing, is that it's understood like, okay, uh, things have to be wrapped up soon, because then money becomes an issue, and the money you're using, like, well, you want to they want to keep the status quo in terms of wealth, and what they know of wealth. Um, so, yeah, it's just an amazing depiction of society and people, and like what were the evolutions of what was happening. Because what gets me as well is for Paris to become the city of lights, this beautiful, amazing place with these boulevards, fashion center, and for people to go there. But it's like, what was Paris in 1879, 1889, and 93, 90, or it's like the Madame Guillotine just made so many people die there, and yet the population goes to 2 million. Um, it's just it's like you makes you like, why keep the capital there? Why not relocate somewhere else? But anyways, man, the it's so they didn't have lawyers for the French Commune, and as a result, that's why it failed. Um, it's it's fascinating and interesting just how lawyers, people who understand the law, but in the case of those parliamentary style, um, the style of government was, uh, you held audience with whatever official, and as long as you maintained a certain decorum, you could interact with each other, and just everybody knew this decorum. Everyone knew this etiquette. Um, so it's natural that a certain aristocracy of the population would be able to interact. Um, and I think it's interesting because how money, uh, only doing what they could with the banks, and even having a loan, which that was amazing. That was an amazing turn, because by the French Republican government, the Prime Minister Adolf. I apologize. The names are just. But I know the first name is Adolf. Or Adolf. Alduf. I'll get it right. Anyways, but to allow the loan, I think is interesting, and a brilliant stroke of, because you realize that, okay, the population is a upset, they're resisting. They want something to happen. These guys are saying like, well, we want to be able to pay our people, like we consider ourselves a legitimate part of the people. Let us deal with the bank. Let us help us. Just get something going so we got people fed. So that people aren't desperate, because if we have to if we have to turn desperate, we will turn desperate, and that's the line we're not going to cross. Because it's because the elimination of the death penalty is showing and establishing. You can never unfire a bullet. You can never unkill someone. That's part of chivalry, in a way. In battle, people will die, but outside of battle, you have a chance with someone. Like, what can this person do? What is the value, the worth of this person? Which is, an unfortunate side of life. But that's because the reason why I'm making this video is I just saw the video by Shadiversity of about did people in the medieval times like combat, and that's why I'm inspired, because Shad mentioned the athleticism, the one-on-one nature of combat, because to get good at combat, you train, you spar with people, and when you get into it, as you can see with modern day MMA fighters, boxers, wrestlers, you name it, people who are like hand to hand or kickboxing, like, all right, we're gonna go toe to toe, we're gonna fight, and just to really develop that skill. And it's like, that's some people, they love it. Go to the gym. You see the people who are like, all right, they really dig just hurting, they're ripping the muscles apart. So but in combat, yeah, you need muscles, to protect you from injury. That's your cushion. That's the padding that helps take blunts. Take blunt instrument trauma, or blunt force trauma from deadly instruments. The bludgeoning, slashing, stabbing, puncturing. The presentation of what can society be, I think, is what's interesting. Newspapers are another key factor that was turning up every time mentioned in the different uprisings and revolts in the different parts of the different countrysides and nations. So if people were reading, or they could get communication about things going on, and especially if they could form political clubs, which how do you maintain political clubs, like through the newsletter, through the sheaf of paper going out saying like, this is our message, this is what we're talking about, through the the people that go out. So you have a person go out, establish, create the group, and then you get the communiques from home, the memos from the home base, saying like, hey, this is what's going on, here's the information. In Paris, if you don't have the communication, like, oh man, we're lost, what's going on? That's what drives this difference in the opinion of home defense force. What do they call themselves again? But the couple of thousand would-be volunteer military guys. Yeah, that's the interesting thing about militia versus army, regular army, which, yeah, is necessary. I keep coming back to the notion, the premise that what everyone seems to understand is a nation state is a beast that the leadership has to wrestle to control. And so when you have this autocratic executive leadership, they understand that, and they can okay, so can my personality, can my intelligence, my wit, my understanding am I part of society? You know, do I understand my place in it? Do I understand my role in this executive position? Like, yeah, okay. So that's why they can swap out emperors. They can swap out kings, etc. You know, or princes, you know, principalities. Like, oh, one guy, if a guy says, "Oh, you know, I can't take this. I have to run away. I'm going to run away, and who knows what will happen." You know, go to England, and since I'm related to everybody, they'll support me. So that's why, yeah, so I'm trying to come to terms, understand. Like, I understand everything that was described in the Revolutions podcast, which was, it's like, but the impact, you know, like, you know, to get to that point, you know, what was happening? How would you get to the point where, following the siege, a rebellion from a working class so the working class uprising, because they were becoming politicized. They were understanding. They understood that if you have political clubs, if you get together and talk, you increase your understanding, your knowledge, and you realize, like, okay, there's 10 of us here, a dozen there, 20 there, 30 over there, 50 over there, you know, meeting, and we just send a guy around and we start talking to each other, like, realize we're on the same page. And but yeah, it's just a weak volunteer force. So yeah, that's it's an interesting way that they went about that thing. Like, why? Oh, so the leadership was just not there. Because I'm also thinking about how taking weapons to these, you know, how Mike described, you know, some of the guys had hidden pistols, you know, like, because, you know, were they armed? Well, they're unarmed, but some of them had hidden self-defense pistols, and the people they were confronting were potentially guards. I'm not sure if the National Guard or whatever, but it's the idea of bloodshed is that if you're alone, you wouldn't always seek to kill someone one-on-one. And in front of witnesses, well, then it's really questionable, like, all right, could you survive, you know, that attempt, sort of thing. But if you were a mob, killing people, or you know, saying, like, hey, we're really unhappy about so and so or something, so guess what, we're going to take you out. And as a result of being in a mob, you're absolved of the crime, because, you know, can you kill somebody and get away with it? With the introduction of firearms, that really ups the ante. Because also in response to Shadiversity, it's like, you know, so what changed, or what was different? And you talk about World War One. I think with World War One, it was the exposure to mass culture includes mass media. So getting newspapers, newsletters out to people, that gets information around. You realize, okay, so we have this common language. You know, so the written word becomes dominant of the words that people speak. So the culture at this time in the 1800s in Europe, so, you know, and previously to that in 1700s, like basically since the Gutenberg press, the cultures begin to solidify around different languages, you know, core languages, so to speak. And those core languages are what probably coalesce center around money. So what you see in revolutions is the coalescing of these different cultures around language. So to get back to, and I apologize for switching to Shadiversity and discussing his show, but anyways. So the people are awakening to the idea that, well, who are we, and nationalism pulls them together. It's a cultural heritage, but then in these fringe areas you see it's something different. It's because of different cultural and historical backgrounds. So Holstein, Schleswig, I apologize for saying that, the border between Germany and Denmark, the Netherlands, the Danes. It's an interesting outcome. The Kingdom of Bohemia, an interesting outcome. Yeah, it's just very fascinating just how these identities start popping up. But yeah, I think Mike Duncan, if anything, I would like to see your take on the 1929 or October 1929 stock market, Wall Street stock market crash, because it's the way you understand and present the impact of money on the government and the institutions of the society. So I would be fascinated to see if you can understand and present your take on how that unfolded. Because I think that's, if anything, like it's just a natural progression of what you've been describing. So yeah, or like the evolution of how is man organizing what's going on with society, and it's and people understand their relationship in society. Because the other thing in your podcast is why are people the way they are, is well, because it's the ascension up the social ladder. That's why we're following and doing the ridiculous things we're doing, because we believe if we follow the rules, are obedient, devout, etc., we will be rewarded. And most times people, and the people who are ahead of you, oh, okay, yeah, so I just have to be more, in whatever case. The rise in inequality, though, is because society changed in a unique way, and that is with the introduction of the colleges. Because the religion, I think, is one of the things in society that they were looking forward to pacify the population. Because I'm looking at the history of the Vikings and how when the Vikings move into England, become Christianized, the first generation or so, they're still pretty good fighters, but then their fighting prowess lacks, and they're taken over by other Vikings, people who are still pagan, or still, maybe first generation Vikings, and repeatedly that seems to be happening. And I think it's this relationship of, so how do the fighters view and treat adrenaline? Before a fight, anticipation, anxiety, fear, but what is this feeling overcoming me? And for the Vikings, it's well, this is the gods speaking to me. They're filling me with their spirit. I'm about to go into battle, and potentially I'm going to die and go to Valhalla. This is what's happening. This is, I'm living the sagas. Is their mentality. For the Christian, it's well, I'm been this happy little lamb in the eyes of God. Now I'm about to go fight the devil. Oh, fear is apprehension is coming over, is overcoming me. So it's there would be more hesitant in battle as a result. The fighters, the people who are just the more trained to fighting, understanding of fighting, uh, hence the warrior priest. Those are the individuals who, yeah, like what's, I'll see what happens. Um, anyways, yeah, it's just so fascinating, the whole podcast. So again, Mike Duncan, way to go.